Just dial pound 250, say micro, and Pure Talk's U.S. customer service will take it from there. Again, pound 250 micro. And yes, I told you so.
In a special election in Britain, Nigel Farage has beaten trash can-wearing comedian candidate Count Binface to regain the seat in Parliament he quit a month ago.
Nigel Farage has won a resounding victory. He won more votes today than he did at the general election 2 years ago. There were fewer votes cast today than that election 2 years ago, and yet he won more. And Reform UK will argue that that vindicates their decision to call this election and sends a message to that parliamentary investigation that's ongoing into his finances to say that this seat strongly backs Nigel Farage.
The BBC's Harry Farley. Firefighters in France and central England are battling multiple fires amid record-breaking heat. France is experiencing its driest year ever, with a new fire forcing more than 500 people to evacuate. Fires also affecting cooler areas like North and Brittany in England. Fires as well and evacuations. Townhall.com. Echoes of the far distant past surface thanks to a dry spell in Italy's largest city.
Rome's ancient Nero's Bridge has re-emerged from the Tiber River as exceptionally low water levels expose parts of the historic structure near St. Peter's Basilica. Weeks of little to no rain have caused the Tiber's flow to fall below 80 cubic meters per second, that according to Rome's Civil Protection Service. Archaeologists say the bridge, traditionally associated with Emperor Nero, may actually predate his reign and have been built under his uncle, Emperor Caligula. The discovery comes as Rome faces a water crisis after prolonged dry periods. Keith Peters reporting.
President Trump plans to highlight his crime-fighting and public safety record during a visit today to a New York police academy. He'll release new FBI crime statistics showing a decrease in violent crime last year. More on these stories at townhall.com.
It's the Michael Patrick Leahy Show, broadcasting live from downtown Nashville. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Good morning. I am Tom Pafford here with Judson Phillips. We are filling in for Michael Patrick Leahy today here on the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. But don't worry, because this weekday morning, as every weekday morning, we have your morning rundown brought to you by our friends at the Glock Store, glockstore.com, located just miles away from the airport in Nashville, Tennessee. Here is your morning rundown for August 14th, 2026. 3 executions occurred in the United States yesterday, one of them in Tennessee. We'll have the details of how exactly this happened after it seems like for so many years, executions didn't happen anymore in this country. And Tennessee is part of this new way to move forward. Number 2, Mangione is expected to plead guilty this morning. Judson Phillips is a former prosecutor. He'll tell us what that might look like if and when that does indeed happen. And we'll also break down a little bit more about the Mangione case. He is, of course, accused of killing the United Healthcare CEO in a high-profile public execution. Number 3, Metro Nashville Public Schools teacher has resigned. In a viral video, she confronted the Board of Education this week. She accused the administration of pressuring her to fabricate grades for students because parents went to the school and complained and wouldn't leave until she did. Number 3, you've heard of Don't California My Tennessee. Well, Vivek's campaign slogan seems to be Please Tennessee My Ohio. He wants to ban the income tax. We'll talk more about that later. Vance has a dire warning for conservatives about how to defeat socialism. And meanwhile, our fiscal outlook in this country has not improved. We continue to be AA plus rated. It does not seem to be impressing the global economic community that we continue to spend with no end in sight. And finally, we'll have a special interview with Dr. Francisco Contreras at the bottom of the second hour of the show. He's a pioneering cancer doctor who will tell us he's going to have a lot to talk about. One of the big topics that he's big on is whether ivermectin actually has a role fighting cancer. That is your morning rundown for Friday, August 14th, 2026, brought to you by our friends at the Glock Store, glockstore.com. The Glock Store is the home for the Second Amendment practitioners of the United States of America. And on Saturday, September 19th, they're having an incredible event called Force on Force. Force on Force puts shooters into intense, realistic, live action scenarios that test your marksmanship and your split-second decision-making. You're armed at this event with a Glock 17T. The T stands for training, and it fires simunition, which leaves a mark when you hit something or when you get hit. You go through 2 different scenarios based on real life. Then you get a professional performance evaluation after each session. That's how special forces, SWAT teams, and tactical operators train all over the world. And now it's open to the public and available in Nashville at the Glock Store. But this will likely be the final Force on Force training event of 2026. And there are only 2 sessions available with only 15 slots per session. So they're almost certainly going to sell out. For more information, go to glockstore.com/FOF, glockstore.com/FOF. Well, Judson Phillips, we have one heck of a show this morning. I think, of course, we should start by discussing the fact that Tennessee was part of a national news story yesterday after it successfully executed somebody who's been on death row, I think, since like 1986, and became one of 3 states to execute somebody. In fact, if I read the story correctly, I think it's the first time in 17 years that 3 states have simultaneously scheduled executions on the same day.
Hey, good morning, Tom. You're absolutely right. And yeah, there were 3 executions, one in Oklahoma, one in Alabama, one in Tennessee. Now, the Tennessee one may be the most egregious, but the Alabama one isn't far behind. And I'll be bluntly honest, just with everything else that I have going on, I haven't had a chance to do a deep dive into the Oklahoma execution. But let's talk about the Tennessee one, not because it's Tennessee, but because I think it represents a horrible failing in our criminal justice system. Darrell Hines was arrested for the 1985 murder of a hotel worker. He stabbed her to death. He used the knife to sexually assault her. I don't know if it was before death or after death, but the lady's only means of defense was a spray bottle. And so he's using a knife against her. He butchers her. And if you know anything about how knives are used in attacks, it's not just one stab wound. You get multiple stab wounds, and they're almost never immediately fatal. You bleed out. And so you're stabbed multiple times. I'm told getting stabbed in the abdomen is just an intensely painful and excruciating way to die. But anyway, Hines is arrested very shortly thereafter, convicted, and then he spends 4 decades on death row. He was 66 when he was executed yesterday. Now do the math on that. When he was put on death row, Ronald Reagan was still president. The Soviet Union was still the evil empire. I mean, I could go on with a list of things that have changed. We went through New Coke and back to Coke and Coke Zero in that time. And
I mean, Judson, I hadn't been born yet. I was born in '94, and I'm now in my 30s. And it's striking to me that this guy was already, when I'm going to kindergarten in 2000, when I'm graduating high school in 2013, when I'm graduating college, when I'm taking my first job, this guy has been sitting there on death row, apparently with his lawyers, thinking of how he can avoid the death penalty, because this is one of the plaintiffs who has sued the state of Tennessee, by the way, over its new lethal injection protocol. And of course, the lawsuit remains ongoing with the other plaintiffs even after his execution was successful.
Yeah, and let's do a little history right here. In the 90s, I was a prosecutor, and I was in Memphis, and at the time, that I started, the method of execution in Tennessee was the electric chair. And the public defenders, the left-wing anti-death penalty groups, they all said, oh, electrocution is so horrifying. It's so terrible. So by the mid-90s, there was this nationwide push to change that, because method of execution was done on a state-by-state basis. Some states did the electric chair. Some states like California did the gas chamber. Some states did hanging. Utah, I think, was the only state at the time that did a firing squad. And the pitch in the early to mid-90s was this from the left-wing groups. Oh, if you'll just agree to lethal execution, it'll be humane. It'll be like putting your pet to sleep when your pet is old and you have to say goodbye. And the implied offer from them was, oh, well, once you have this humane method of execution, we will still object to the death penalty, but we won't be objecting because it's cruel and unusual. Well, guess what? That's all they have done since then. They have.
Judson, I want to ask you about that in the next segment, because they were getting past this somehow with 3 executions in one day. It's clear. But we've talked about this on the show before, about how the Tennessee's protocol is accused of being in a gray area legally, because you cannot legally buy the drugs that they used for these executions. And to me, it seems as though this is all part of a plan in order to always have opponents to the death penalty and always have this political movement. Don't go away. You're watching the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. I'm Tom Pappert, here with Judson Phillips, a Tea Party Nation founder and former prosecutor. We'll be right back after this break.
Now more than ever, it's imperative to support companies that share our conservative values. That's why I can't be more excited to tell you that I've switched my family to Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. When you switch to Patriot Mobile, you shift your support away from the leftist, woke, progressive agendas of Big Mobile. Patriot Mobile's wireless service works perfectly and seamlessly as you go about your lives with exceptional nationwide coverage that uses the same towers the main carriers use. Patriot Mobile donates a portion of every dollar earned to causes you care about, to organizations that fight for religious freedom, First and Second Amendments, sanctity of life, and the needs of veterans and first responders. Patriot Mobile has plans to fit any budget, along with great discounts for our veterans and first responder heroes, as well as multi-line users. Switching is easy. Just go to patriotmobile.com/Godzilla or call their U.S.-based customer service team, 972-PATRIOT. That's 972-728-7468. Use offer code Godzilla for free activation.
In 2008, the amount of concentrated time people could spend on a task without becoming distracted was 12 seconds. 5 years later, it was only 8 seconds, 1 second less than a goldfish. If you're often distracted or have trouble recalling information, you're likely to fall behind in the demanding, fast-paced 21st century. In other words, brain performance is more critical now than ever. Boost your brain power with Healthy Cell's Focus Plus Recall. Science-backed nootropics to help you sharpen focus, concentrate longer, enhance recall, improve mental speed, learn rapidly, and be more alert. It's a pill-free brain supplement made with maximum absorption ingestible gel technology, designed to feed your brain at the cellular level. Take it for a test drive. Go to healthycell.com and use code GODZILLA for 20% off your first order of Focus Plus Recall. That's healthycell.com, code GODZILLA for 20% off.
If you owe back taxes, listen carefully to rule number 1. Never go up against the IRS alone. They're cracking down, freezing bank accounts, garnishing paychecks, canceling passports. Even your home or business could be at risk. But here's what they don't tell you. The IRS has powerful tax relief programs that could save you thousands if you qualify. That's why smart people call Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax resolution firm. Nobody knows these programs like the experts at Optima. Their team of tax tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $2 billion in tax debt for people just like you. The IRS is not stopping, so don't wait and don't take them on alone. For tax help you need, for tax help you can trust, call Optima today for a free consultation.
Call 800-780-3599. 800-780-3599. 800-780-3599.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Congratulations to my friend Michael Patrick Leahy on 9 years of journalistic excellence. I'm Lenny McGill, owner and founder of the Glock Store here in Nashville, Tennessee, and a proud sponsor of Michael Patrick Leahy's Tennessee Star Network for over 5 years. When we started, he was on just one local station. Now, he's on 20 stations. His motto, find the truth and report it. And as long as he sticks to that, we'll stick to being a sponsor. And next year, Michael, let's have a party for you right here at the Glock Store.
I'm Brent Taylor, and I approve this message.
Brent Taylor has my complete and total endorsement. Those are the words of President Trump announcing his endorsement of Brent Taylor for Congress. President Trump can count on Brent Taylor to support the American First agenda, fighting inflation, cutting spending, deporting illegal immigrants, and protecting our conservative values. President Trump endorsed Brent Taylor for Congress. Now he needs your vote. Paid for by Brent Taylor for Tennessee.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. I'm Tom Pappert, lead reporter at the Tennessee Star, here with Judson Phillips, founder of Tea Party Nation and former prosecutor. Wanted to share a quick programming note. Michael will be back on Monday, but it will be at an all-new time, 2 to 4 p.m. Central Time. That's 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern, and it's very exciting. There's some new sports programming coming to the John Fredericks Media Network for Tennessee listeners specifically that will be right before Mike's show, so you're going to want to listen really on Monday at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern, but definitely from 2 to 4 p.m. Central, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern to catch Michael Patrick Leahy, your normal host, at his all new time. So Judson and I, we were just discussing the modes of executions in this country and how it's changed over the years. And we're talking about this in the reference to 3 prisoners being executed throughout the United States yesterday, one of them being in Tennessee, a guy by the name of Daryl Hines, who was convicted for the first time all the way back in 1986 of the rape and murder of a hotel maid. He was convicted by a second jury which imposed the same sentence in 1989, and he had been sitting on death row from the 1980s until 2026 yesterday when he was executed. And Judson, you were just bringing up about how in the 80s and into the 90s, the anti-death penalty folks were saying if we could just come up with a humane lethal injection, then we would no longer complain and we would allow justice to be carried out. Well, a couple years ago, in fact, when was this? This was just March of last year. Hines was among 9 death row inmates in Tennessee who sued over Tennessee's adoption of pentobarbital to use for lethal injections. They said it was, quote, excruciatingly painful and used, quote, only because state officials were able to get their hands on the drug. They claimed that it can result in a torturous death if the supply is, quote, obtained, stored, handled, and or administered incorrectly, and that this death is, quote, not simply painful or uncomfortable, but involves a sensation of suffocating or drowning that has been likened by experts to the sensation intentionally induced by the practice of waterboarding. But Judson, when I wrote this article last year, what occurred to me is that this drug apparently, allegedly, according to the lawsuit, exists in a gray market. And so the reason why it can allegedly result in such a torturous death is because Tennessee has a hard time buying it from proper sources who take care of the supply correctly. And to me, it seems as though they have created a paradigm under which the only way you can execute somebody is with a lethal injection, and the only lethal injection you can get might not work. So therefore, according to them and what they would say, we just can't have executions in this country anymore. I'm so glad that Tennessee rejected this, but am I correct in the leftist interpretation of events?
Absolutely. And there's a couple of things here. Number one, all the leftists go after the legitimate suppliers of these drugs to pressure them not to sell to states to be used in executions. And so the states have no other choices. Now, the other interesting part is what you mentioned in your article. All the experts say this can happen. This can happen. The important word here is can, because they don't know. Why don't they know? Well, when you have a homicide case, and if somebody is executed, it's classified as a homicide because it is a killing that is done by a man or men. And by the way, if anybody's going to get offended, man or men is used in the gender neutral sense here. But all these death row inmates, amazingly enough, develop the same religious objection to having an autopsy performed on them after they've been executed. Because the autopsy, there are certain things that you can tell, such as, did the person suffer a lot, or did they basically go to sleep pretty much immediately and then not suffer any pain? Well, guess what? All the anti-death penalty zealots and their attorneys get these folks to say, to issue like a last will that says, on the basis of religious grounds, I object to an autopsy. Well, guess what? I mean, that's unfortunately been honored. I don't think it should be, because you know what? If you are a murder victim or if you die under mysterious circumstances, you're going to be autopsied. And you know, an autopsy is simply there. It's not to defile the body. It's simply there to determine what was the manner of death and any other relevant scientific information. Now, this has been going on for 30 plus years now with the zealots pushing first lethal execution and then trying to block the lethal execution. What our legislatures ought to do, and this is not just Tennessee, but every state that has the death penalty, they ought to change the rules. Number one, every major city cop who's been a cop, or every cop in a major city who's been a cop for a period of time, can relate to the same story that either they have personally experienced or they know somebody has experienced. And that is this. You come upon a dead junkie. They were shooting up heroin, and they set themselves up to do the injection. And for whatever reason, the heroin is not cut properly. It's extremely poor or extremely pure. And death happens so fast, the junkie can't even get the needle out of his or her arm. Well, instead of using all this fancy chemical cocktail, why don't we just use really pure heroin?
Or fentanyl. We're told all the time that, you know, an amount of fentanyl smaller than the nail on your pinky finger can take out a city of like 250,000 people. So it seems to me that that would be a no-brainer in terms of a way to conduct an execution.
Exactly. Or here's what I think. If somebody asked my opinion, here's what I would tell them. The state legislature should create 5 or 6 methods of execution. Hanging, gas chamber, lethal injection, execution by firing squad, being guillotined. Fill out your blank, whatever. When a jury sentences somebody to death, they sentence them to death, but they don't prescribe the mechanism of that execution. When it comes time for execution, or the appropriate lead time for it, every prisoner is told, okay, here are your options for execution. Here are the pros and cons. It may hurt, it may not hurt, this will be quick, etc. And the prisoner gets to choose. And by the prisoner choosing, they forfeit their right to claim, oh, it's a cruel and unusual punishment, because guess what? You've made an informed decision. And if the prisoner refuses to decide, then you have a default that you just go to, because the prisoner refuses to cooperate and decide. I think that's what they ought to do. If you line up a firing squad, for example, if you line up 6 50 caliber rifles, computer assisted, so you know they're going to land on target, it's going to be a mess, but guess what? Death is going to be pretty instant. If you guillotine somebody, death is going to be pretty, the brain may or may not remain conscious for 20 or 30 seconds or maybe less, but guess what? You're not going to feel any pain because all those pain receptors have been cut off. Heroin or fentanyl, it's going to be fast. It's going to be the ultimate high. Tell them that because that's probably true. But whatever it's going to be, let's figure out a way to do this. Interestingly enough, I was reading about some other things, and something I came across during the 60s and even into the early 70s before the death penalty was declared unconstitutional. When somebody was arrested for murder and it was a death penalty case, they would be tried, and if they were convicted of the murder and sentenced to death, the whole process took 2 years or less. And now Tennessee's, the one we're talking about with Daryl Hines, 40 years to get the guy executed. The criminal who was executed in Alabama, 20 years to get him executed. Even Texas, which is considered probably the most efficient state for getting somebody executed, it's rare if you can get it under 10 years. It happens in Texas, but it's rare. It's still over a decade.
And Judson, I almost feel like that's part of the strategy, because if you wait 40 years between the time the crime was committed and everybody is very angry and very upset and wants something to be done, in 40 years, those people may not even live in the same city, state, may not be alive anymore. I think that's part of the reason why these cases gained so much sympathy in the intervening decades. And I want to talk about another Tennessee death row inmate, Tony Carruthers, who seems to be experiencing the sympathy. He recently got a 1-year reprieve on his date of execution. We'll share the details on the other side. Don't go away. You're watching The Michael Patrick Leahy Show.
Now more than ever, it's imperative to support companies that share our conservative values. That's why I can't be more excited to tell you that I've switched my family to Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. When you switch to Patriot Mobile, you shift your support away from the leftist, woke, progressive agendas of Big Mobile. Patriot Mobile's wireless service works perfectly and seamlessly as you go about your lives with exceptional nationwide coverage that uses the same towers the main carriers use. Patriot Mobile donates a portion of every dollar earned to causes you care about, to organizations that fight for religious freedom, First and Second Amendments, sanctity of life, and the needs of veterans and first responders. Patriot Mobile has plans to fit any budget, along with great discounts for our veterans and first responder heroes, as well as multi-line users. Switching is easy. Just go to patriotmobile.com/Godzilla or call their U.S.-based customer service team, 972-PATRIOT. That's 972-728-7468. Use offer code Godzilla for free activation.
And they're off. This summer, the Thunder returns to Colonial Downs Racetrack. Live thoroughbred racing June 25th through September 7th. Feel the excitement. Hear the roar of the crowd. Experience Virginia's premier horse racing destination every Thursday through Sunday all summer long. Bring the whole family for Family Fun Sundays, packed with activities for all ages. Parking? Free. General admission? Free. Memories? Priceless. Make Colonial Downs Racetrack your new summer fun time tradition. Get tickets and race day info now at colonialdowns.com.
Washington is wasting $500 million every year on a federal supervision system that doesn't work. Probation officers are overwhelmed. Resources are going to people who pose zero threat, while actual dangerous individuals slip through the cracks. The Safer Supervision Act stops the waste and refocuses every dollar on protecting families from harm. President Trump's own pollster found about 80% of Trump voters want this fixed. It's time for Congress to get this done. Stop the waste. Protect our communities. Visit safersupervision.com. Paid for by the Reform Action Fund.
Wagering at its finest, playing at the highest levels, under the highest stakes for more than a decade. This is the world past the wire has conquered, bringing you uncompromised thoroughbred authority and elite track data that anchors the game. But the modern wagering landscape is expanding. Every sport, every line, every prop, and every high leverage future, we decode the metrics across the entire board. From game day spreads to the explosive new frontier of prediction markets and event contracts, we give you intelligence to dominate the modern financial exchanges. Because in the end, it's a battle. You versus the house. You versus the other players. In this arena, we fight with you. We are your ultimate edge. Welcome to the Ultimate Wagering Network. Subscribe to Past the Wire TV and turn on notifications, because when the dust settles,
nobody does it better.
Honesty, integrity, help Tennessee, markpody.com.
The values that have made Tennessee strong, faith, personal responsibility, freedom, and respect for one another, are rooted in timeless godly principles. Those values are worth protecting, and I'm going to continue fighting to preserve them for our children and grandchildren. I'm Mark Pody, and I'd be honored to earn your vote again.
markpody.com.
Paid for by the campaign trail like Mark Pody.
Candace Graham, Treasurer.
I'm Scott Desjardins, and I approve this message.
We will make America great again.
President Donald Trump has given his complete and total endorsement to Congressman Scott Desjardins, saying he fights for our military, veterans, law enforcement, and the Second Amendment.
I'm honored to be endorsed by President Trump. I know together we've got to control inflation, secure our borders, and strengthen our military.
Scott Desjardins, representing the people of the 4th Congressional District.
With your support, we will make America great again. Paid for by friends of Scott Desjardins.
Johnny Garrett's not some out-of-touch D.C. politician. Johnny Garrett's a Tennessean, a Christian conservative, and a proud father of 3 who's sick of the far left ruining our country with their radical policies. Conservative Johnny Garrett is proudly pro-life, pro-Trump to his core, and will always put America first. In Congress, Garrett will fight to lower taxes, cut government waste, and will always back the blue and support law and order. Garrett's fought for us in Nashville, and that's what he'll do in Congress. No to biological boys playing girl sports. No to communist China buying our farmland. And no to criminal illegals invading our state. Because with Johnny Garrett, what you see is what you get. It's time to bring more Tennessee to D.C. Send Trump conservative Johnny Garrett to Congress.
I'm Johnny Garrett, candidate for Congress, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Johnny Garrett for Congress.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. I'm Tom Pappert, lead reporter at the Tennessee Star, here with Judson Phillips, Tea Party Nation founder and former prosecutor. Tennessee, Oklahoma, and Alabama executed men yesterday. 3 men were executed in one day for the first time since 2006. A long time that's happened. We were talking about sort of the ecosystem around executions and what that looks like in 2026. And I think there are few better cases to represent this than that of Tony Carruthers. He was convicted all the way back in April of 1996, so 6 months before I was born, for the triple murders of Marcellus Anderson, Delois Anderson, and Frederick Turner, all the way back in 1996. The murder happened in 94. So I was 2 years old when he was convicted. And so Judson, recently, this individual was set to be executed. They were able to make the primary IV connection to inject the drug. They couldn't get the secondary IV connection. This process went on for hours, and eventually Governor Bill Lee ordered a 1-year stay of the execution while they figure out what happened. And it's since been alleged that Mr. Carruthers had intentionally dehydrated himself, which I'm no doctor, but it just makes sense to me that is going to make your blood vessels and your veins constrict, because that's what happens when you're dehydrated. So if that's true, that would seem to make the operation more difficult for the physician who was there that day. But I think that there's something to what you were talking about in the last segment, because he was convicted in 96. And now we're 20 years later, and when
30.
you read the stories about him, 30 years later, 30 years later, and you read the stories about Carruthers, it's about how, oh, this poor guy, he had to represent himself in court, and now he's old. And Judson, I feel myself filling with rage when I read some of these headlines.
Well, this story is more interesting than that, and is pretty outrageous. I was in the district attorney's office in Memphis when the murders occurred and when he was prosecuted. And I know I had nothing, I was not involved in his prosecution, but I knew the lawyers for the DA's office that were. Obviously, I worked with them. They were friends. And I knew the lawyers that represented him. And I'm going to give you sort of the thumbnail version of what happened back then, and then we'll talk about the present day. But originally, when he was arrested in 94, his family retained a very prominent Memphis lawyer. And I'm going to leave all the lawyers' names out. I know all of them, have nothing but good things to say about all of them. But for privacy purposes, let's just leave them out. First attorney is in for a little while. He has to withdraw because of a conflict. Well, guess what? Those kind of things happen. All right? So second attorney is appointed. That attorney has a conflict and has to get off of the case. Third attorney gets appointed and reports, the first appointed attorney withdrew because of physical threats made by Carruthers and Carruthers' associates towards him. Second set of appointed attorneys withdrew because Carruthers kept making complaints about them. Third set of appointed attorneys appointed in July of 1995. I happen to know both these guys. One of them is a good lawyer. One of them is one of the, or at least at the time, I'm not sure if he's still practicing or not, was one of the not only best lawyers in the state of Tennessee, but one of the best lawyers in the United States. He was really, really good, did a lot of death penalty litigation, and just a very, very good and talented lawyer. The judge, at the time these guys were appointed, warned Carruthers that, I'm done messing around with you. These are your last attorneys. If you screw this up, you're going to trial representing yourself. And guess what? By December of 95, the lawyers were asking to withdraw. The lead attorney, the one that I was just telling you how good he is, he wanted to withdraw because of threats being made to himself, his family, his staff, and he feared for all of those people. In December of 95, the judge refused to let him withdraw. But the judge also said that Carruthers was creating a situation to delay the proceedings. All right, come into January of 96. The situation is back again, and the lawyer comes in and says he's received additional threats and says, I will not represent the guy. And I mean, that's kind of something you don't really say to a judge. I mean, that's how, and I happen to, because the guy's a friend, I happen to, of personal knowledge, know how bad the threats were. And I'm not going to mention it on the air because they were confided to me back in the day, and I don't know if these were ever made public, so I'm not going to share that. But they were pretty bad. So the judge, again, refuses to let him off the case, but then tells the lawyers, he tells Carruthers, resolve your problems. We're not going to play this anymore. They're back in court a week later. The lawyer has received yet more threats. And so the judge won't let him off, but orders him to become what is called elbow counsel. And basically he tells Carruthers, fine, you're going to represent yourself, but you can have these attorneys on standby, and you can, elbow counsel is what happens when you have a pro se litigant in a criminal case, but you have an appointed attorney who can advise them. The litigant can stop the proceedings basically and confer with his elbow counsel. I will tell you, I did that once in my career. I had a client who decided they wanted to represent themselves. It was a really bad idea. I told them that, but I ended up as elbow counsel, and despite my fine efforts as elbow counsel, it ended up predictably as bad as you would expect.
Well, Judd, so let's just back up for a second, because this is so wild. The guy went through how many different lawyers? He's making threats to them, apparently.
9, maybe more.
8 or 9 different lawyers. He's making threats to them. He has been, I mean, we know that he was eventually convicted of these murders and kidnappings. And this is how it's reported in 2026. Tony Carruthers was forced to represent himself at trial. Tennessee is about to execute him. This is from some liberal publication called ballsandstrikes.org. And when you go to the actual article itself, you can scroll down and you can read this sentence, this paragraph. Carruthers' self-representation was just the beginning of a long, shocking path through the criminal legal system. So, I mean, these people sound as though they have started a biography of Tony Carruthers in, say, January of 1997, after he was already convicted and serving his sentence, because that was not the beginning. You just told us the beginning was getting his first lawyer, a hotshot lawyer in Memphis. It ended with his self-representation with the elbow counsel, because the judge didn't know what else to do, it sounds like.
He didn't even have elbow counsel, because the trial judge ordered the attorneys to remain as elbow counsel. The attorneys had appealed the first ruling that required them to stay on the case. They'd appealed it to the Court of Criminal Appeals, and the Court of Criminal Appeals ruled, this situation is so bad, we are not making any lawyer stay on this case. And so they were off the case. He did represent himself. Now, he had a co-defendant at trial, a guy named James Montgomery. They were tried together. The cases went up on appeal. The Tennessee Supreme Court affirmed Carruthers' conviction because of his outrageous behavior, but it did. James Montgomery was the co-defendant. He also received the death penalty, but the Supreme Court reversed his conviction because they said it was unfair to him to have to go to trial with Tony Carruthers representing himself. Eventually, James Montgomery entered a guilty plea to second-degree murder. He served 27 years, and he was released in 2019. But Carruthers is still on death row. The lawyers, I can't say specifically the lawyers, his specific lawyers have told him this, but amazingly enough, lawyers and activists in other cases are telling people on death row, dehydrate yourself, and they can't get the vein in. And, you know, I've been to the hospital a couple times with dehydration in the past, and I can tell you from personal experience, you know, when they wanted to put an IV in me to get fluids into me because I was dehydrated, they had a really hard time doing it. So the same is, I'm sure, true here. And it's just insane that we allow convicted murderers who've been through a lengthy process, and now it's been 32 years since the murder, 30 years since the trial and conviction, and yet they still get to game the system. And this is, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, state legislators across the country need to change the way that the death penalty is administered, and you start giving the defendants multiple choices about how you can die. You get your choice, but you're at the end of the day, you're going to get executed one way or another. And, you know, unfortunately, because of ex post facto laws, the constitutional prohibition against ex post facto laws, we're still going to have this huge logjam of people on lethal injection because, unfortunately, we can't change the method of execution after they've been sentenced, unless it was already on the books.
You know, it's not just people on death row that get this level of coddling and attention and really adoration and praise in 2026. We're going to talk about another one of them, Luigi Mangione, who is reportedly today, there's some reports saying he's going to change his plea to guilty. So we'll talk about Mangione, what that may look like, and also the bizarre cult of personality that has formed around him on the other side. Don't go away. I'm Tom Pappert here with Judson Phillips. You're watching the Michael Patrick Leahy Show.
In 2008, the amount of concentrated time people could spend on a task without becoming distracted was 12 seconds. 5 years later, it was only 8 seconds, 1 second less than a goldfish. If you're often distracted or have trouble recalling information, you're likely to fall behind in the demanding, fast-paced 21st century. In other words, brain performance is more critical now than ever. Boost your brain power with Healthy Cells Focus Plus Recall. Science-backed nootropics to help you sharpen focus, concentrate longer, enhance recall, improve mental speed, learn rapidly, and be more alert. It's a pill-free brain supplement made with maximum absorption ingestible gel technology, designed to feed your brain at the cellular level. Take it for a test drive. Go to healthycell.com and use code GODZILLA for 20% off your first order of Focus Plus Recall. That's healthycell.com, code GODZILLA for 20% off.
What happens in Virginia doesn't stay in Virginia. It influences policy and policymakers nationwide. The VirginiaStar.com shines a light on the issues in VA that become issues for the USA, with insightful commentary that gets to the fact of the matter. The VirginiaStar.com is your source of wisdom and truth, locally, statewide, and nationally. Log on today and every day. The VirginiaStar.com. The VirginiaStar.com.
The Trump administration has brought positive changes when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system. If we really want to make America healthy again, well, that starts at home. And that's where the Wellness Company comes in. You see and hear from the Wellness Company doctors all the time, and you know their products are the gold standard for keeping you and your family safe and healthy, giving you the opportunity to make sure you're prepared for whatever happens with their prescription medical kits. Additionally, the Wellness Company offers a variety of products, from parasite cleanses to methylene blue to weight loss and so much more. Make America healthy again starts at home. Do your part and protect the health of you and your family. Live a healthier, longer, and more satisfying life. Go to twc.health/Godzilla and order. That's twc.health/Godzilla. Use promo code Godzilla to save 10% today.
The Cats and Cosby Show.
It's the top news of the day. People are out there saying, oh, the Iranians are never going to live by it. But let me tell you something. President Trump is going to bomb them again if they screw around.
Hopefully they live up to it. And if not, the pounding's coming. We're going to do it again and again and again.
The Cats and Cosby Show, weekdays 5 Eastern, 4 Central on the stations of the John Fredericks Media Network.
Trump is the toughest president we ever had.
Well, he's definitely the best bomber.
Congratulations to my friend Michael Patrick Leahy on 9 years of journalistic excellence. I'm Lenny McGill, owner and founder of the Glock Store here in Nashville, Tennessee, and a proud sponsor of Michael Patrick Leahy's Tennessee Star Network for over 5 years. When we started, he was on just one local station. Now, he's on 20 stations. His motto, find the truth and report it. And as long as he sticks to that, we'll stick to being a sponsor. And next year, Michael, let's have a party for you right here at the Glock Store.
I'm Brent Taylor, and I approve this message.
Brent Taylor has my complete and total endorsement. Those are the words of President Trump announcing his endorsement of Brent Taylor for Congress. President Trump can count on Brent Taylor to support the American First agenda, fighting inflation, cutting spending, deporting illegal immigrants, and protecting our conservative values. President Trump endorsed Brent Taylor for Congress. Now he needs your vote. Paid for by Brent Taylor for Tennessee.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back. I'm Tom Pappert here with Judson Phillips. We're talking about death penalty cases, high-profile criminal trials, and that leads us, of course, to Luigi Mangione, who in about 10 minutes is reportedly going to appear in a federal court in Manhattan. They're saying he might change his plea to guilty as part of a plea deal with federal prosecutors. Now, I'm just reading from CNN, which I would not normally do, but when you're talking about Luigi Mangione,
the most busted name in news.
They're the best source for Mangione news. I mean, I imagine the Mangionistas, the super fans, they probably watch CNN. And so it says that plea negotiations are still ongoing, even 10 minutes before they're supposed to enter the courtroom. Sources caution nothing is final until it is announced in court. And of course, Judson, his state trial, because he faces both federal and state charges in New York, that is actually set to begin, I believe, next month on September 19th. So there's some interesting timing here. I think that a former federal prosecutor can probably explain to us the significance of this timing.
All right. For starters, this was not something that was scheduled. It was added to the judge's docket, and you don't just randomly add stuff to a judge's, particularly a federal court judge's docket, just out of the blue. So typically when you add something like this, it's going to be what's called a change of plea hearing. And what will happen, Mangione will be brought in. He and his lawyers have reached some kind of an agreement with the federal government. He may have also reached an agreement with the prosecutors in the state of New York. We don't know that yet. We'll find out because everybody's been tight-lipped. But what will happen is Mangione will be brought in, and let's assume that a plea has been done. He will most likely have already signed his paperwork, but if he hadn't, he will. And the judge will then enter into a fairly lengthy colloquy with him about his rights. Does he understand his rights? Does he knowingly and voluntarily give up his rights to a jury trial, etc.? And does he understand what is going on? Has anybody threatened him or coerced him to make this guilty plea? And guilty pleas in federal court generally tend to be fairly lengthy affairs. In state court, I've seen guilty pleas done in less than 2 minutes. I've seen a few guilty pleas where the judge just basically said, "Hey, is this what you want to do? All right, you're guilty." Federal court, it's not that way, particularly in a case like this where it's such a high visibility case. The judge is going to go over in excruciating detail that he is willing to, that this is a knowing and voluntary guilty plea. That's the standard in criminal cases. If you want to plead guilty to a case, your plea must be knowing and voluntary, meaning you know your rights and you're doing this voluntarily, not that somebody's threatening you, there's not a gun in your back, etc. Now, in federal court, what typically happens is once somebody pleads guilty, the matter is set off for 90 or 120 days for federal pretrial services to prepare a pre-sentence report. And this pre-sentence report is given to the judge, and then it's also given to the attorneys, and it has a recommendation for sentencing based on the federal sentencing guidelines. The federal sentencing guidelines used to be mandatory. Now they are simply recommendations, although judges do tend to follow the recommendations. Mangione was originally indicted on 4 counts. 2 counts of stalking that resulted in the death of a victim. And this is what in criminal law is referred to as alternative pleading. You can have one set of facts and you may make alternative pleadings so that you give your jury options. Back in the day when I spent several years as a drug prosecutor, and we would have people who were arrested for doing sales of cocaine. And we would do a 3-count indictment: sale of cocaine, possession of cocaine with the intent to sell, possession of cocaine with the intent to distribute. Why? Give the jury more options if they want to convict. Mangione was also indicted on 2 counts of use of a firearm in interstate commerce with a resulting death. Now, the significance of that is those 2 counts made Mangione eligible for the federal death penalty. But this case was assigned to a liberal judge appointed by Joe Biden, Margaret Garnett, and she nixed she dismissed the 2 counts involving the firearm, which took the death penalty off the table. Department of Justice could have gone back and done a superseding indictment, but I think they saw the handwriting on the wall that with this liberal activist judge, there was just simply no way they were going to get a death case forward. So here we are today. Mangione is going to plead guilty. The offenses he will most likely plead guilty to carry life in prison. And in the federal system, life means life. You actually serve life. In state systems, we would call it life without parole. Now, it is possible, I consider it unlikely, but it is possible, there could be a sentencing resulting in something less than life. Also, he still has to deal with the New York State case, which can be problematic for him, but also this guilty plea may torpedo that case. And what we can do, he's going to start his hearing at the top of the hour.
Let's keep talking about Mangione and the other side. Because
exactly.
I want to talk about the significance of today and the significance of that state case that you're talking about and whether it might be torpedoed and why he might like that idea. Don't go away. You're watching the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. I'm Tom Pappert here with Judson Phillips. We'll be right back after the news on the other side.
In 2008, the amount of concentrated time people could spend on a task without becoming distracted was 12 seconds. 5 years later, it was only 8 seconds, 1 second less than a goldfish. If you're often distracted or have trouble recalling information, you're likely to fall behind in the demanding, fast-paced 21st century. In other words, brain performance is more critical now than ever. Boost your brain power with Healthy Cells Focus Plus Recall. Science-backed nootropics to help you sharpen focus, concentrate longer, enhance recall, improve mental speed, learn rapidly, and be more alert. It's a pill-free brain supplement made with maximum absorption ingestible gel technology, designed to feed your brain at the cellular level. Take it for a test drive. Go to healthycell.com and use code GODZILLA for 20% off your first order of Focus Plus Recall. That's healthycell.com, code GODZILLA for 20% off.
August 17th, big changes are coming to the John Fredericks Media Network. John Fredericks, Your Godzilla of Truth, starts the day from 6 to 10. Wendy Bell follows from 10 to noon. Rob Carson Staying Put at noon to 3. Michael Patrick Leahy moves to 3 o'clock, followed by Katz and Cosby at 5. America's new boss for conservative talk is the John Fredericks Media Network.
John Fredericks loves his radio and TV audience, but did you know how to follow the Godzilla of Truth wherever you go? Download the John Fredericks Radio Show app to listen live nationwide. For the daily chit-chat, Trucking the Truth, download the Getter app and join the morning fun on Getter Live from 6 to 10 a.m. Follow John Fredericks on Getter, Truth Social,
WJFN, Goochland, Bon Air, Chester, 100.5, 107.7, 92.7 FM, AM 820, and WJFB, Portsmouth, AM 16.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. The Trump administration is asking the Supreme Court to allow the White House to resume construction of the $400 million ballroom project while it appeals a lower court's order to halt the work. Shoppers unexpectedly cut their spending in July, a boost from government refunds having faded.
Retail sales slipped 0.6% last month, the biggest drop since May of 2025, from a revised gain of 0.2%, according to the Commerce Department data released this morning. There was a notable bump in spending in both April and May as Americans dipped into their tax refunds. Excluding sales at gas stations and auto dealers, retail sales in July fell 0.2%. Gas prices ticked up again overnight to $4.08 per gallon on Friday, up from $3.85 a month ago, according to Motor Club AAA. Bernie Bennett in Washington.
The judge has tossed out Nevada's fake electors case.
6 Nevada Republicans were accused of submitting a bogus certificate that falsely declared Donald Trump the winner of the state's 2020 presidential election. But that case has now been dismissed. While prosecutors argued the defendants intended for their documents to be mistaken for actual electoral votes, the judge sided with those defendants. They called it an act of political theater designed to publicize their concerns about the election and preserve their rights to challenge the official results. 3 other fake elector cases in Arizona, Michigan, and Georgia also have been dismissed. I'm Ben Thomas.
Accused healthcare CEO assassin Luigi Mangione may plead guilty today to federal stalking charges in the murder of Brian Thompson on a Manhattan sidewalk in 2024. Such a plea could spare Mangione a state trial on murder charges. On Wall Street, the Dow is down about 71 points, the Nasdaq off 77 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hi, I'm Kirk Cameron. Christian Healthcare Ministries is not another health insurance policy. If you're tired of year-long contracts and pointless restrictions, CHM offers anytime enrollment on your schedule and at your convenience. With CHM, you're paying half the cost of a traditional health insurance plan. So that puts more money back into your budget for everyday needs. Plus, you'll have access to CHM's care solutions for virtual appointments, prescription savings, surgery support, and more. My family and I joined in 2018, and it's changed our lives for the better. We love paying way less while helping other believers afford their medical bills. Take the leap of faith and see why Christians across the nation are better with CHM.
Get started by calling 1-833-JOIN-CHM and use promo code WELLNESS for a 50% credit towards your first month. That's 1-833-JOIN-CHM and use promo code WELLNESS.
Japan is dealing with record-breaking flooding that's blamed for at least 4 deaths east of Tokyo. Heavy rains have forced people out of their homes while leaving thousands stranded at a major airport.
The Japan Meteorological Agency issued its highest level warning as more than a third of Chiba's municipalities face dangerous flooding and landslides. It was downgraded 1 level as the storm subsided, but at the peak, more than 400,000 people were ordered to evacuate. Roads were submerged in water and power was cut to tens of thousands of homes. Stranded commuters spent the night in a government building. Officials warn heavy rain could continue through Friday.
The BBC's Kurumi Mori reporting from Tokyo. Record-breaking heat is holding large areas of France and England in its grip as wildfires rage. France is experiencing its driest year ever, with a new fire forcing more than 500 people to evacuate. News and analysis, townhall.com. If you have one of those compact refrigerators, see if yours is part of this safety recall.
Kaluli has recalled about 250,000 mini fridges due to fire and burn hazards. The Consumer Product Safety Commission says the recall affects certain 10-liter and 15-liter mini fridges that have an electric switch that can short circuit. Consumers are urged to stop using the recalled mini fridges immediately. The company has received at least 19 reports of the products overheating or catching fire, causing more than $80,000 in property damage. The recall covers older model mini fridges sold between January of 2019 and October of 2024. I'm Mike Hemp.
Arizona State now offering a new bachelor's degree in content creation. Critics question the legitimacy of such a degree, but proponents insist content creation is a viable career path these days. More on these stories, townhall.com.
It's the Michael Patrick Leahy Show, broadcasting live from downtown Nashville. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back. I'm Tom Pafford, lead reporter at the Tennessee Star, here with Judson Phillips, founder of Tea Party Nation, former prosecutor. Within minutes, we may hear that Luigi Mangione is going to enter the courtroom. He's expected or reported to be going to change his plea to guilty today in the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. And Judson, you were just talking about the implications of the state case, because Mangione is facing federal charges. He's going to be walking into a federal courtroom today, but he's also charged in the state of New York. And there's some speculation out there that the double cases, the 2 twin cases, could be influencing his decision if he is indeed going to plead guilty.
Absolutely. All right, and let's lay out a couple of scenarios here, because nothing has been announced yet, so we don't know what is happening. First option that could be happening is what lawyers a lot of times will refer to as a package deal, and that is where you have cases in multiple jurisdictions, and you resolve all the cases, if not at the same time, you at least have the agreement enacted at the same time. So what could happen is Mangione could come in enter his plea in federal court. And by the way, I talked earlier about how sentencing typically works in federal court. There are a few rare circumstances where the sentencing can be announced as a part of an agreement. That's rare in federal court. In state court, it's very, very common. We were talking in the earlier segment about Tony Carruthers and his co-defendant, James Montgomery. When he came back after his death penalty was reversed and his conviction was reversed, he came back and entered a negotiated plea, and they agreed to 27 years. So that's very common in state court. So what could be happening is there's an agreement in federal court, maybe including the sentence, maybe not, but also with it is an agreement in state court. For example, it could be life in federal prison, life in state court, and they're running concurrently. Now, the benefit for Mangione of such an arrangement would be he's going to do his time in federal prison. And if you have your choice between doing time in federal prison or a state prison, even in New York, federal prison is going to be a better deal. Now, the one thing I will say, I don't know if he would end up there, but possible Mangione could end up in Supermax out in Colorado. Now, but let's say there's no package deal. Here's what happens next. Mangione takes his plea in federal court, then he goes to New York State Court. His New York lawyers are immediately going to file some motions, and here's why. New York has more expansive rights under double jeopardy than most other states do. Legally, there's a doctrine called the separate sovereigns doctrine, which in a lot of states, if you're prosecuted and convicted in federal court, you can still be prosecuted and convicted for the same crime in state court. It's not double jeopardy. But under our constitutional republic, the way things are set up, a state can never provide you any less protections or any fewer protections than are guaranteed by the United States Constitution, but it can provide you greater protections than are what is provided in the United States Constitution. So in New York, there is a chance that the way this plea goes down, it could trigger double jeopardy provisions and would make a prosecution in New York State impossible. Paul Manafort, if you remember him, he was arrested for both federal by federal authorities and state authorities, and he was convicted in federal court. The state of New York, I can't remember if it was voluntary dismissal by the prosecutor or dismissal by the judge, but one way or another, it was decided double jeopardy provisions kicked in, and he could not be prosecuted in state court. Now, what's going to happen with Luigi Mangione? I don't know. If I was a betting man, I would guess they probably worked out a package deal, because the worst they can do to Mangione in state court is life in prison. New York doesn't have the death penalty. They've abolished it. Well, if Mangione is pleading guilty in federal court and getting a life sentence, what's the incentive for prosecutors in state court to go ahead and try him? There really isn't one. Their best case scenario is they get a conviction, they get a life sentence. Well, guess what? He's already doing life. Worst case scenario, they lose the case, they get really embarrassed, they end up with egg on their faces, and that's not a good thing. So my guess, and again, we'll find out more. I was just looking real quick. There's people in the courtroom now. His defense team has arrived. But
the Thompson family is there. I wanted to ask you about that as well, Judson. Now, I find it significant that obviously they're there. I think that if there is a plea, they want to be there to have their presence be felt and known. But what do you think the significance of that might be, that the Brian Thompson, the CEO who was killed, obviously, his family is made sure to get there before the defendant, just right as soon as the courtroom doors opened at 10:04 in the morning, they were reported to have walked in.
I don't know how many of the other proceedings they have been at, but their presence at this proceeding almost certainly indicates there is a negotiated plea here. And again, the question is, what is that plea? We don't know the answer. My guess is the prosecutors, at least the federal prosecutors, have already talked to the Thompson family about this and have their approval for whatever is being done.
Interesting. And Judson, I wanted to ask, because obviously there's much ado made about the circus that occurs outside the courtroom at every appearance by Mangione. You've already got the headlines and the articles and the videos. I saw one guy there in a MAGA hat. I would like to formally disavow him on behalf of all of Make America Great Again. You are not allowed to go to the Mangione trial as a supporter wearing a MAGA hat. He is disavowed. But
maybe
Judson,
maybe the guy is supporting having Mangione convicted and given the maximum possible sentence. I don't know, but
that would be the only possible scenario that would be acceptable. But Judson, I wonder if you could share with us, as a former prosecutor, are these people going to even get a glimpse of Mangione? Like, why are they camping out if this guy is almost certainly just going to be shackled and brought in the back door?
Well, he for security purposes, he is brought in through a secured loading dock. They have secured passageways and elevators to take any defendant from the loading area to the courtroom to make sure that there are no threats against the defendant, that the defendant cannot escape, etc. The courtroom space is going to be limited. I saw on Fox News, I think it was Fox News, that said there were 50 seats available in the courtroom. That sounds about right. Courtrooms are not stadiums. Most of the time, there is almost nobody there except the parties involved. This one, different story. It's a high-profile event. Most of those seats are going to be taken up by the media. The Thompson family is going to be there. I don't know if Mangione's family is going to be there or not. I would consider it unlikely that one of his fangirls is going to get up there and get a seat in the courtroom. But I can tell you this. The federal courts, federal judges, and the U.S. Marshals, they do not mess around. If these folks start an outburst in the courtroom, they're going to get up close and personal, first of all, with a United States Marshal or two, and then they're going to get up close and personal with a set of handcuffs, and they're going to get taken away. Federal judges, it's against the law to disrupt a federal court proceeding. Federal judges also have an inherent contempt power that they can send somebody to jail for up to 18 months for pulling a boneheaded stunt like that. Yes, federal judges.
So in other words, we may be seeing before the end of the day, I mean, who knows? They probably won't even get in, but we could see one of these Mangionistas walk away in handcuffs and not come back out for 18 months. That'll be something to watch. We'll have to keep an eye on this and see if it happens before the end of the broadcast. Don't go away, though. We're going to talk about a Nashville teacher who has resigned and gone viral over her accusations made against Metro Nashville Public Schools. I'm Tom Pappert here with Judson Phillips. We'll be right back after this break.
Hey folks, Al Green here for SatPhone. When you're on the go, you want to know you're connected. If it's a family vacation or an off-the-grid escape to a remote destination, having reliable communication helps you feel safe and secure. You can't afford to find yourself in a dead zone. That's why you need SatPhone. SatPhones are reliable, durable, and give you global coverage. If you can get outside, you can get in touch. It's that simple. Make calls from your SatPhone to any regular cell phone in the United States. The phones are $1,500 value, but you can get yours free. Just sign up for a 15-month plan, $94.95 a month. Get 150 minutes monthly that roll to the next month. Go 3 months without using them, that's fine. Yes, 3 months, 450 minutes, all yours. Visit SAT123.com or call 855-980-5830. SAT123.com, 855-980-5830. Get surety and security with your SatPhone. Call now.
Wagering at its finest, playing at the highest levels, under the highest stakes, for more than a decade. This is the world past the wire has conquered, bringing you uncompromised thoroughbred authority and elite track data that anchors the game. But the modern wagering landscape is expanding. Every sport, every line, every prop, and every high leverage future, we decode the metrics across the entire board. From game day spreads to the explosive new frontier of prediction markets and event contracts, we give you intelligence to dominate the modern financial exchanges. Because in the end, it's a battle. You versus the house. You versus the other players. In this arena, we fight with you. We are your ultimate edge. Welcome to the Ultimate Wagering Network. Subscribe to Past the Wire TV and turn on notifications, because when the dust settles,
nobody does it better.
Bad decisions limit future options. Make enough bad decisions and you will destroy your life. Listen to The Flatline with your host, Rick Hughes, every Sunday morning on the John Fredericks Radio Network. The Flatline describes a main line of resistance in your soul, built on God's Word. Join us every Sunday morning for 30 minutes of inspiration, motivation, and education, all without manipulation. That's The Flatline with Rick Hughes, heard here every Sunday at 8:30 a.m. on the John Fredericks Radio Network.
Trump 2.0 is in full effect. How do you keep up with all the action? I'll tell you. TrumpNationNews.com is your inside source for the inside scoop. Manufacturing, jobs, deportations, and the nation's rejuvenation. The first 100 days and beyond. All the news you need and no liberal gibberish. It's the perfect way to start your day. Sign up for the TNN newsletter. Do it today. TrumpNationNews.com. TrumpNationNews.com. Part of the John Fredericks Media Network.
Johnny Garrett's not some out-of-touch D.C. politician. Johnny Garrett's a Tennessean, a Christian conservative, and a proud father of three who's sick of the far left ruining our country with their radical policies. Conservative Johnny Garrett is proudly pro-life, pro-Trump to his core, and will always put America first. In Congress, Garrett will fight to lower taxes, cut government waste, and will always back the blue and support law and order. Garrett's fought for us in Nashville, and that's what he'll do in Congress. No to biological boys playing girl sports. No to communist China buying our farmland. And no to criminal illegals invading our state. Because with Johnny Garrett, what you see is what you get. It's time to bring more Tennessee to D.C. Send Trump conservative Johnny Garrett to Congress.
I'm Johnny Garrett, candidate for Congress, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Johnny Garrett for Congress.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back. I'm Tom Pappert here with Judson Phillips. Samira Hardcastle is a former Metro Nashville Public Schools teacher. Last year, she won the Blue Ribbon Teacher Award, only given to 25 educators every year. And this year, she was named the Teacher of the Year. But she resigned in May, and earlier this week, she appeared before the Metro Nashville Public Schools Board of Education to tell them why. Let's go to clip 2 and see why she's going so viral. Well, deservedly.
I was Teacher of the Year at John F. Kennedy Middle School in Antioch this past year, and Blue Ribbon Teacher of the Year for the district. What you have in front of you right now is my resignation letter. I resigned in May. You can read those 3 pages at your leisure, but I've heard a lot of positive data in this meeting, and I just wanted to give you some facts from my firsthand experience. So first, district leaders asked me to fabricate grades for a parent who sat in the office for hours until her daughter's failing grades were changed. It creates false entitlement. What happens when these kids lie, cheat, and cry their way through school and end up as future doctors, police, or politicians? When will you protect the future of our society? Second, that same parent has harassed over 30 teachers. Teachers have filed police reports, and entire school districts have had our entire schools have had restraining orders against her, yet she's still allowed on school property, showing up to field trips her child didn't earn, and filming other students. When will you stop prioritizing parents' feelings over the safety of our teachers and our students? I heard you also mention that we're closing gaps in teacher vacancies. I want the public to know that many of those are filled with uncertified teachers. My third point, HR withheld money from my employee paycheck as well as many others. They took $500 from me specifically, and it put me behind on my mortgage. And then they sent out an email saying that they had to do it to pay other employees. When will you pay teachers what they are owed? My fourth point, the news reports that behavioral issues are down. They are not. We are simply banned from reporting them, forcing us to keep disruptive students in the classroom. Statistics are being skewed to protect the district, not our children. Our children cannot read and write. They cannot do basic math. And we spend 40 hours a week with these students, so we know them better than the district and those fake numbers. Please stop undermining our professional decisions, because honestly, it's breaking the efficiency and it's giving HOA quality. So Dr. Battle, my question to you
Thank you. The time.
Okay.
But
So she said the students cannot read and they cannot write. And Judson, this comes just days after another teacher out of Texas went viral for, on his second day of school this year, breaking down in tears because his students could not read and could not write. He asked them to fill in one word in a sentence diagram, and he said they could not manage to do it. So it seems as though we've got Nashville, we've got Houston, Texas, that was. This is a growing national problem that we're seeing right up close and personal in Nashville.
It is. And if you look at the blue cities in particular, you will see a lot of this. You go to cities like Baltimore, where students who can read at their grade level or write or do math, etc., they're in the single digits. And, you know, our schools have become politicized. The schools are now, and I'm talking about primarily the big city schools, but even some of our suburban schools are going this way as well. They're more concerned about, oh, let's make sure we get the correct gender pronouns, or let's help somebody transition without telling their parents. And that's what they're concentrating on. Oh, let's get the kids out to do an ICE protest instead of let's teach them the basics of how to read and write. And it really is an alarming trend for the future, because one of the things that has made America such a great nation, and when I say great nation, I'm talking about an economically prosperous nation, but also a free nation, is the fact that the average member of the populace can read, can write, is educated, and can obtain good paying jobs. But here you have our big city schools that are dumbing down kids, that are, just because, you know, mama's coming in to complain and complain and complain, we're passing kids along. One of probably the worst things I saw, a teacher wrote in an article about the 1%. There's the 1% that drags them down. And in this particular article, this teacher was talking about how this one problem student was thrown out of the class. They just crossed too many lines. They were thrown out of the class. And then suddenly the performance of everybody in the class got better because they weren't having to spend all their time dealing with this one disruptive student who was causing problems all the time. And because that student was out, then other students could learn. And there's a message here. You know, disruptive parents need to be thrown out. If your kid is not passing, your kid needs to be failed. You know, back in the dark ages when I was a kid, I joke about that, but, I grew up in the 60s and 70s. And guess what? While I'd never failed a class, I had friends that did. I had friends that failed grades, that had to go back a grade. But guess what? They learned. And, back then, if you failed a class or you failed a grade, your parents might have been down at the school to talk about it, but they weren't down there haranguing teachers and haranguing administrators to pass Johnny anyway. It was, what did Johnny do wrong? How do we fix this problem? And how much can I tan his backside when I get home without getting into trouble? Because literally, those were the things that would happen to us back in the day. And now,
Judson, you talk about you send out the one problematic student and everybody else benefits. And I think everybody knows that's true. But some liberals, I should say, will say conservatives are hard-hearted for saying that. But it just reminds me of the study that came out a year or two ago, and I believe it was the Washington, D.C. Metro, that it was like a fraction of 1% of the total residents of the city, but it was the same fraction of 1% that were committing virtually all of the crimes on the metro system. And people pointed out, if you would just ban them, say by putting them behind bars in jail or prison from ever getting back on the metro, then everybody else would be able to use the metro, and it would be a wonderful experience. And it seems as though we have exported this same experience from the mass transit world to the world of children,
Tom,
where now they have to deal with the disruptive person that may be committing offenses.
Tom, let me interrupt you for just a second. We've got some breaking news. Just a few minutes ago, one of Luigi Mangione's attorneys announced, quote, Mr. Mangione is prepared to plead guilty to the indictment at this time. So they have started a guilty plea colloquy, and he is pleading guilty.
Wow. And so then that happened quickly, because when we talked about this earlier, we speculated that it could take, hours that we may not know till after lunch. What do you make of the fact that it came so fast? They've only been in court less than half an hour.
Well, the process is not completed yet. Okay. The process is going to go on for quite some time, but that's the preliminary. The attorney comes in and announces to the judge he's going to plead guilty. And so the judge knows, okay, I'm just not sitting here for an hour or two wasting my time when I could be doing something else more productive. So we know the plea is happening, and the judge will now, as I explained in the earlier segment, the judge will now go through excruciating detail going over everything. For example, it's been reported, he's already admitted he's never been treated for mental illness or addiction. He's asked if he's drank alcohol or taken any drugs. It's prison. He shouldn't be getting alcohol or drugs, but he did say, he took a sleeping medication a couple of days ago, and then he said his mind is clear and he understands what is happening today. So those are the first part of the questions that the judge will ask, and the judge, again, will go into a lot of detail, because here's what happens. Going back to what we were talking earlier, a lot of times after criminals plead guilty for a very long sentence, particularly if it's something like life, which is probably what he's going to get, they decide prison is not such a fun experience anymore. They'd like to be out there, in the real world. So they will file something in state court. It's typically called a petition for post-conviction relief. In federal court, it's called a habeas corpus. And basically it says, my guilty plea was invalid because I didn't know what I was doing. It wasn't voluntary, et cetera. And the judges cover these points in great detail so that these guilty pleas are not later reversed.
So that way he can't get out of it. Well, we'll see if he gets cold feet, but if he's made it this far, hopefully we'll see if he's committed. Don't go away. On the other side, we'll have Dr. Francisco Contreras, a pioneering cancer doctor. He's going to talk about a number of issues, including ivermectin. You're watching the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. I'm Tom Pappert, here with Judson Phillips.
What happens in Virginia doesn't stay in Virginia. It influences policy and policymakers nationwide. The VirginiaStar.com shines a light on the issues in VA that become issues for the USA, with insightful commentary that gets to the fact of the matter. The VirginiaStar.com is your source of wisdom and truth, locally, statewide, and nationally. Log on today and every day. The VirginiaStar.com. The VirginiaStar.com.
The Trump administration has brought positive changes when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system. If we really want to make America healthy again, well, that starts at home. And that's where the Wellness Company comes in. You see and hear from the Wellness Company doctors all the time, and you know their products are the gold standard for keeping you and your family safe and healthy, giving you the opportunity to make sure you're prepared for whatever happens with their prescription medical kits. Additionally, the Wellness Company offers a variety of products, from parasite cleanses to methylene blue to weight loss and so much more. Make America healthy again starts at home. Do your part and protect the health of you and your family. Live a healthier, longer, and more satisfying life. Go to twc.health/Godzilla and order. That's twc.health/Godzilla. Use promo code Godzilla to save 10% today.
MyPillow's second annual mega sale is finally here. Get our patented premium MyPillows that adjust your exact individual needs to give you the best sleep of your life.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
I guarantee they're going to be the most comfortable pillows you'll ever own. King size only $24.98, queen size only $19.98. Giza Dream bed sheets, the best sheets in history, as low as $29.98. Lux Pier 6-piece towel sets, towels that actually dry you. What a concept. Now only $39.98. And our made in the USA mattresses and mattress toppers as low as $99.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our second annual mega sale. Plus free shipping options available when you order today. So don't delay, order now.
Trouble getting to sleep and staying asleep is infuriating. Your mind races, you toss and turn. Nutrition company Healthy Cell created REM sleep to help you quickly fall asleep, stay asleep, and sleep deep. Unlike other supplements that don't work, REM sleep is not a pill. It's a gel you swallow with ultra absorption of science-backed ingredients supporting all 4 stages of sleep. Go to healthycell.com and use code GODZILLA for 20% off your first order. Risk-free. Love it or your money back. Guaranteed. Healthycell.com. Code Godzilla.
Congratulations to my friend Michael Patrick Leahy on 9 years of journalistic excellence. I'm Lenny McGill, owner and founder of the Glock Store here in Nashville, Tennessee, and a proud sponsor of Michael Patrick Leahy's Tennessee Star Network for over 5 years. When we started, he was on just one local station. Now, he's on 20 stations. His motto, find the truth and report it. And as long as he sticks to that, we'll stick to being a sponsor. And next year, Michael, let's have a party for you right here at the Glock Store.
I'm Brent Taylor, and I approve this message.
Brent Taylor has my complete and total endorsement. Those are the words of President Trump announcing his endorsement of Brent Taylor for Congress. President Trump can count on Brent Taylor to support the American First agenda, fighting inflation, cutting spending, deporting illegal immigrants, and protecting our conservative values. President Trump endorsed Brent Taylor for Congress. Now he needs your vote. Paid for by Brent Taylor for Tennessee.
Honesty, integrity, help Tennessee, markpody.com.
The values that have made Tennessee strong, faith, personal responsibility, freedom, and respect for one another, are rooted in timeless godly principles. Those values are worth protecting, and I'm going to continue fighting to preserve them for our children and grandchildren. I'm Mark Pody, and I'd be honored to earn your vote again.
markpody.com.
Paid for by the campaign trail like Mark Pody.
Candace Graham, Treasurer.
I'm Scott Desjardins, and I approve this message.
We will make America great again.
President Donald Trump has given his complete and total endorsement to Congressman Scott Desjardins, saying he fights for our military, veterans, law enforcement, and the Second Amendment.
I'm honored to be endorsed by President Trump. I know together we've got to control inflation, secure our borders, and strengthen our military.
Scott Desjardins, representing the people of the 4th Congressional District.
With your support, we will make America great again. Paid for by friends of Scott Desjardins.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Good day, everyone. It is not Michael Patrick Leahy. I'm Judson Phillips, guest hosting, and very pleased to have a special guest today, Dr. Francisco Contreras from the Oasis of Hope Cancer Center. Good morning, doctor. How are you doing today?
Doing very well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, to start with, we're going to talk about cancer today, but every story is kind of personal, and I'm going to begin with mine. Back 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. And doctor, I don't know if you've experienced cancer personally, but I know you experience it from the professional side. And, you know, I can tell you, if you've ever experienced cancer, you go into the doctor's office and the doctor says, it's cancer. And, you know, immediately your mind just focuses down. It's like, you know, we're told at the end of our lives, we see our lives flash before us, and it's sort of the same thing. And you like wonder, am I going to live? You know, and in my case, My children were not adults at the time, so I'm thinking, okay, what happens to my wife and my children? Things like that. And fortunately for me, I underwent 2 rounds of treatment, one in 2018, one in 2020 and 21. And today, 5 years out, I'm completely cured. So, doctor, let's start with some basics. We're seeing a whole lot more cancers, at least it seems to me that we are, than we did years ago. Why are we seeing so many cancers that we didn't see all those years ago?
Well, you're absolutely right that the impact is very personal, and the image that people have of cancer and the whole concept is that cancer is a death sentence, and that's why there is so much stress about it. That's number one. The second part is what you are mentioning is correct. The incidence of cancer has been increasing steadily, for the last 50, 70 years. But in recent years, probably 5 to 10 years, there is a significant rise of very aggressive cancer in very young people, things that we didn't used to see in the past. And of course, there's many theories about this. Our environment, the amount of chemicals that are being used especially in the food industry, pollution, and of course, the advent of the vaccines against COVID are probably playing a role in this explosion of cancers that are now called turbo cancers in very, very young people. So it is unfortunate that the incidence of cancer is rising.
Now, when we talk about these new the levels of cancer that are rising, we think there's 2 parts of this. A, you get diagnosed with cancer, but B, can you be treated for it? And with these turbo cancers that we're seeing, how is the treatment? Is this survivable, or is this now a new death sentence for people?
Yes, these turbo cancers are very, very aggressive, and there is, no new therapies developed specifically for them. And that's why I believe that we need to attack cancer, whether it's this new type of turbo cancers or the typical cancers, not only from the outside in, meaning not only with chemotherapy, radiation therapy, but also from within, enabling the patient's immune system to attack cancer. This is the most effective way of helping cancer patients. And we've been using this method for about 17 years now, where we create an immune attack, a specific cancer attacking system for each patient, for each tumor. These are very individualized therapies. We call it IMPACT, which stands for Immune Personalized Autologous Cell Therapies, where we create within the immune system this anti-tumor task force. And this has been very effective both for the typical cancers and also for the turbo cancers. So yes, as the malignancies evolve, therapies also evolve. And I'm very happy to say that using the immune system as the main therapy has proven to be very, very effective in many of our patients.
In general terms, comparing just normal traditional treatment that you mentioned, things like radiation, chemotherapy, or surgery, comparing that to what you do, what's the difference in survival rates?
Well, it all depends on the stage. Surgery continues to be the most effective therapy when a tumor is found in early stages, 1 or 2. Even 3, surgery can be very effective. In stage 4, though, the results with radiation therapy and chemotherapy have been very, very poor, except for some tumors. Prostate cancer is a tumor that responds very well, especially to radiation therapy in early stages. Breast cancer can be, well treated with hormone therapy also in advanced stages. But for the majority of cancers in stage 4, conventional therapies have proven to be not effective. And unfortunately, more people die of cancer every year in comparison to the year before. So in spite of all of the advances and all of the research done by many universities around the world. And I believe that the reason for that is more philosophical than technical. If we do not help patients wholly, meaning we have been trained as mechanics of the human body, and we are not taking care of the emotional and spiritual needs of patients. And I feel that when you do not do that, the patient is going to be more immune depressed, because there are so many things that depress our immune system, and hopelessness is one of them. And that's one of the things that the diagnosis of cancer brings to you. It's a death sentence, but it doesn't have to be, especially when you help the patient through the immune system and when you address the emotional spiritual needs, because it's been proven over and over that a depressed patient has a depressed immune system and a poor prognosis with cancer, whereas a positive patient, a patient that's hopeful, a patient that wants to fight, has much better outcomes. So we make a combination of these natural therapies like the immune therapy and other natural elements, together with boosting the immune system with emotional and spiritual resources. And I believe that this combination is the reason why in our hospital, the results, 5-year survival rates are much better than with conventional therapy alone.
Now, one thing, when we talk about cancer, there's really two parts to it. There is survival, but also there is, consequences of treatment. And I may not be phrasing that well, but I think I get the concept across, because I know my personal experience. I survived cancer, and I am really happy about that. But the downside is there were some side effects, some permanent side effects, as a result of treatment, and those are things I live with. As a good friend of mine likes to say, it's better than the alternative. But with your treatment, we're talking about survival rates, and obviously survival really, really important, but also with the treatments that your center provides, how does it impact people as far as long-term side effects once they have gotten past the cancer treatment, and you come in and tell them, good news, we've taken care of your cancer?
You're absolutely right. The side effects of chemotherapy and less, but also very important with radiation therapy, can be very devastating to a patient. So quality of life to me is paramount. And one of the beauties of the natural therapies like high dose vitamin C, hyperthermia, ozone therapy, lateral even vitamin B17, they have no side effects whatsoever, and they can be very effective. Immune therapies like the dendritic cell vaccine that was actually developed at the Rockefeller University in New York, and it's still in the process of being approved by the FDA after almost 20 years of research, and it's available in Mexico, is very effective and has zero side effects. So when the patient survives, the quality of life is as it was before they developed cancer. And in many cases, survivability does not require for the patient to be cured. So we have many, many patients that were told that they were going to die in 6 months, and they're alive 20 years later. They're not completely cured. That is, if we take x-rays, we still see tumors. They're completely stable. They're not growing. They're not a threat to the patient. And the patients have, just complete quality of life. So for us, the most important thing is quality of life with, obviously, that the patient survives, but with quality of life. Not that the patient survives and then is not able to enjoy life whatsoever.
One of the most amazing things that I'm seeing right now, there's a gentleman named Ben Sasse. He used to be a United States Senator, president of the University of Florida. He was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, told he just had months to live, and he's received an experimental treatment. President Trump helped him get this treatment, And apparently everybody was expecting him to be dead right now, and apparently he's not. So that's pretty incredible. We're coming up on a break right now, but when we come back, I want to talk to you about some of the incredible options, including such things as ivermectin and some other things people have talked about, as well as the idea of medical tourism, because I know you're located in Mexico. So we'll be back in a couple of minutes with Dr. Francisco Contreras, and we'll be talking more about cancer and surviving it.
Ponder this. Why would God permit evil to occur? Why does he allow bad things to happen to good people? Why doesn't he intercede when innocent people are unjustly accused? These questions sometimes cause good people to turn their face away from God and question the very existence of God. But God does exist, and he does permit evil. Why, you ask? The short answer is that God permits evil to bring about a greater good. Think about this. The greatest evil ever committed is the killing of our God, Jesus Christ, the second person of the Holy Trinity. From this great evil came the greatest good, the opening of the gates of heaven. That's right, heaven did not open until Christ shed his blood for us. We must always trust God's plan for our salvation, especially when hard times fall upon us. Pray, trust, and persevere in good times and bad. I'm Susie Kelly, and I am passionately Catholic.
Washington is wasting $500 million every year on a federal supervision system that doesn't work. Probation officers are overwhelmed. Resources are going to people who pose zero threat, while actual dangerous individuals slip through the cracks. The Safer Supervision Act stops the waste and refocuses every dollar on protecting families from harm. President Trump's own pollster found about 80% of Trump voters want this fixed. It's time for Congress to get this done. Stop the waste. Protect our communities. Visit safersupervision.com. Paid for by the Reform Action Fund.
The Cats and Cosby Show.
It's the top news of the day.
People are out there saying, oh, the Iranians are never going to live by it. But let me tell you something. President Trump is going to bomb them again if they screw around.
Hopefully they live up to it. And if not, the pounding's coming. We're going to do it again and again and again.
The Cats and Cosby Show, weekdays 5 Eastern, 4 Central on the stations of the John Frederick Media Network.
Trump is the toughest president we ever had.
Well, he's definitely the best bomber.
Folks, this is Crime Carmichael, CEO of Solti. I have recently turned 77 years old. I do not take prescription drugs. I have not had to take prescription drugs, and I attribute a lot of my good health to a product that I've been taking, which is the active ingredient in Solti. It's a 22% concentration of theaflavin. We did clinical trials on it 25 years ago and found that it helped lower cholesterol. We have had many, many hundreds of letters and emails from customers telling us how it has helped them not only manage their cholesterol, but lower their triglycerides and help them on their blood pressure. And I can't tell you how much I attribute to Solti for my good health at age 77. And I encourage you to go to GodzillaHeart.com. That's GodzillaHeart.com. And use the code Godzilla at checkout, and you'll get a 50% off on your initial shipment of Solti. And I promise you it will be a great help for your heart health. Thanks so much.
Johnny Garrett's not some out-of-touch D.C. politician. Johnny Garrett's a Tennessean, a Christian conservative, and a proud father of 3 who's sick of the far left ruining our country with their radical policies. Conservative Johnny Garrett is proudly pro-life, pro-Trump to his core, and will always put America first. In Congress, Garrett will fight to lower taxes, cut government waste, and will always back the blue and support law and order. Garrett's fought for us in Nashville, and that's what he'll do in Congress. No to biological boys playing girl sports. No to communist China buying our farmland. And no to criminal illegals invading our state. Because with Johnny Garrett, what you see is what you get. It's time to bring more Tennessee to D.C. Send Trump conservative Johnny Garrett to Congress.
I'm Johnny Garrett, candidate for Congress, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Johnny Garrett for Congress.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
And I am not Michael Patrick Leahy. Judson Phillips substituting for Michael. He is out today, but we'll be back on Monday. And important programming note, the show is going to be moving. Starting Monday, it will be at 3 p.m. in the afternoon Central Time, 3 to 5. So make sure you adjust your calendars accordingly. And remember, this is must-listen radio and podcasting, so make sure you're listening into the show. Our guest in this segment, Dr. Francisco Contreras of the Oasis of Hope Hospital. And Doctor, again, thank you for joining us. Let's talk about something that's in the news that a lot of people are talking about that piques my interest a bit. Hopefully I'll never need it, but it piques my interest. Ivermectin. That, and there's a couple other substances which I could not even begin to pronounce, and to save my audience, I'm not going to try. But you've been using ivermectin, as I understand it, in treatment, and some of these other substances. How is that working out? Is it a true alternative? And what are these other substances?
You're probably talking about fenbendazole and menbendazole.
Yes.
Which are anti-parasitic drugs, and some of them are for veterinary use, but it's exactly the same as the one that we use in humans. And in third world countries, parasites are a major problem, and so we use them at least twice a year on just about all of our population. And people believe that these things are like old wives' remedies that have no scientific background. But the truth is, it's been proven that these anti-parasitic drugs are pro-apoptotic. What that means is that every cell in our system has an expiration date. Malignant cells do not have an expiration date, so they don't have this apoptosis. And what we do with ivermectin and fenbendazole or menbendazole is that we promote apoptosis. That is, we actually invite these cells to commit suicide. And this has been proven, very, very well in research. So there is a place for these anti-parasitic drugs in the treatment of cancer, and we use them widely and openly to help our patients fight their cancers, because cancer is very resourceful. And so the more angles that you attack it from, it's going to give you a better outcome. And these drugs are completely harmless. They have virtually no side effects, even in very high dosages.
Doctor, I will say, just as a personal matter, normally I don't approve of suicide, but in the case of cancer cells, I will make an exception to that. You're talking about ivermectin and these other couple of drugs. I've heard some things about repurposed drugs that have been approved for one purpose, but yet work for something else. And are you seeing that in the cancer front as well?
Oh, yes. And this has been true for many, many years. The first one is aspirin. Aspirin was approved by the FDA as a painkiller, but we also found out that it's a very good blood thinning agent. So even though it was never approved as a blood thinning agent, doctors can prescribe it off-label, it's called, for blood thinning agents. There's a drug, for instance, that was developed for arthritis that is very powerful against cancer. So that's another repurposed. There's a medication that is used for diabetes, metformin, widely used around the world, and now it's known that it can kill stem cells from cancers. So there's a number of drugs that can be used, repurposed for cancer that are very, very helpful.
When I was diagnosed with cancer, I didn't like my treatment options. I'm here in the U.S., obviously, didn't like my treatment options. So I went to Germany for a treatment that was approved in Germany, but not approved in the United States. And the good news is the treatment was half successful. The bad news is the treatment was only half successful. And ultimately I had conventional treatment. Oasis of Hope Hospital is in Mexico. It's not in the United States. So people who are interested, probably their first reaction is, well, wait a minute, it's not an American hospital. How does this stack up against, how does Oasis of Hope stack up against medical hospitals? And if somebody's interested in treatment, how do you go about getting treatment at Oasis of Hope?
Okay, well, we are highly trained. I studied in the States, my pre-med, in Mexico, my medical school, and in Vienna, Austria, my surgical oncological training. All of our doctors are very well trained, and the facility is also state of the art. So that's number one. The advantage that you have with a treatment center like ours is that we're integrative. There are many cases, like in your case, where conventional medicine can really shine. And so the biggest advantage is that I have all of the pieces of the puzzle from the alternative and from the conventional, and we're going to choose whatever, according to our experience, is the best for the patient, a combination or just conventional or just alternative.
Dr. Francisco, thank you so much. We're up at a hard break, so I've got to stop right now, but I appreciate you being on the show. Hopefully I can get Michael to have you back on sometime. Quick programming note, I said 3 to 5 Central Time for the new time next week. It's actually 3 to 5 Eastern. It'll be 2 to 4 Central Time. Must-listen radio, so tune in to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. I'm Judson Phillips, substituting for Michael. Thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Hike!
Hey Richmond, here comes Alabama Crimson Tide football. As always, the Tide have their eyes on the national prize. Hear pregame, postgame, and every play of in-game action right here all season long. First game, September 5 against East Carolina. Kick time, noon Eastern. Get the full Crimson Tide schedule.